Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 12, Episode number 26. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Wednesday. Dave, got a personal question to ask you. Hope you don't mind me asking. How's that groin doing over here in Pittsburgh? There's apparently an epidemic of groin injuries, as we'll talk about. So I just want to make sure that you're okay.
Yeah, my groin has been in the same shape for numerous years. So if you don't use your groin a lot, then you tend not to hurt it.
Okay, all right. Maybe I shouldn't ask that question. I threw you off there. All right, Dave. Yeah, let's talk about today's show. We have a lot to talk about from an injury report standpoint. Mike Tomlin had his press conference on Tuesday. Ben speaking with the media on Wednesday morning. Also, a little bit later in the show, we will talk with Paul Dehner, who covers the Cincinnati Bengals, the Steelers' Week 3 opponent for The Athletic. You can follow him on Twitter at Paul Dehner Jr. One of our favorite guests. We love all of our guests here equally, Dave, but Paul's the child that went to Harvard and got his master's and all that kind of stuff. He's fantastic, so we'll hear from him a little bit later in the show. But Dave, let's start things off with, well, let me ask you, because we could talk about 18 different things to begin today's show. Should we talk about the injury report, the practice squad signing of Taco Charlton, Mike Tomlin? What do you want to start here?
Yeah, I like how you try to get away quickly from speculating about my groin. So
we'll speculate about other groins here in a little bit.
Yeah, why don't we start there and talk a little bit about what Mike Tomlin had to say about the kind of the overall health of the team to start with.
Yeah, and unfortunately, he had a lot to say. I think the two busiest people yesterday were you writing the injury report and Dr. Mel, who's writing article after article about some of these injuries, and we thank her very much for her expertise. So, yeah, let's give you a lay of the land here from an injury report standpoint of where the Steelers are at there dealing with they're up to 4 players now with groin injuries, Devin Bush and Joe Hayden, who missed the Raiders game with those injuries, TJ Watt, who suffered a groin injury during that game, and Alex Highsmith reappearing on the Mike Tomlin injury report with a groin injury. He had something he was dealing with right before the Bills game in Week 1, ultimately played in that game. So that's 4 groin injuries right there. In addition to those injuries, Ben Roethlisberger, that's a big one, obviously, also has a pec injury he suffered during that game. It sounds like he's going to play, but he's going to be playing in a lot of pain. And then Tyson Alualu had surgery on his fractured ankle on Monday. Tomlin did not say whether or not he could return this season. That's probably a wait-and-see type of thing. And I think that's everything, but I might be missing something too.
Yeah, Tyson obviously with that fractured ankle went to IR, and Ben says it only hurts when he has to reach outside of his frame of his body or try to get up off the ground. There, shots fired, and props to you for picking up on that. And I think we even talked about that on the last show about not used to seeing a number 53 out there on the field not picking Ben Roethlisberger up off the field when he's down, and not used to really seeing Ben Roethlisberger on the ground as much as he was against the Raiders as well too there. So it does sound like Ben Roethlisberger is going to give it the old college try this week, but he is Ben makes sure to it's just not a complaint. It's just who Ben is. Ben makes sure to let everybody know what his injuries are and how bad they hurt and all like that. It's just kind of status quo there. So I think the groin, they're trying to run a groin on the flank here to get you to not look at the pec over here on the left side this week.
That's a sentence I don't think has ever been said in recorded human history before. I like it.
You get around me long enough, you get a lot of those.
You do.
For sure. Yeah, it's concerning. I mean, you've got 2 guys, and Mike Tomlin said, obviously Devin Bush and Joe Hayden trying to work their way back. And we went into last week thinking, can't wait for this clean sheet to come out on Wednesday. Got to the end of the week there, and you have 2 guys missing the game with groin injuries, and you had Carlos Davis miss the game with a knee injury there. So it's so hard to kind of speculate on this stuff, and obviously obviously the first injury report of the week will be released on Wednesday after practice. I expect that to be pretty lengthy with guys not practicing. And, obviously the big question will be with T.J. Watt in that groin. But, I mean, you got a guy that can't even finish the second half of a game, right? And a guy like him that you got to know it's killing him not to be on the field. And I know it's a normal work week and all like that, and the guy's going to do everything he can in his power to get back on the field. But don't you kind of, I don't know, Dr. Mel's obviously knows more about this and written up a few extra things on this during the week and all. But, man, it makes you kind of wonder, is this going to be something that he has to deal with here for a couple of weeks?
Yeah, as you said, they're tricky. They can linger. And the bottom line is right now, I mean, Tomlin didn't explicitly say that Ben's going to play, but basically implied it, and Ben seemed to say as much today. The other guys with the groin injuries are kind of all a big unknown right now. That's Highsmith, that's Watt, that's Bush, that's Joe Hayden. Also, I didn't mention Deontay Johnson with that knee injury that he suffered that last play of the game. Tomlin said here, here's the quote from Tomlin, quote, "He's looking better, but not to be confused with great. So we'll follow him and his health as we get through the week." So his status is very much up in the air. So I would say that it's fair and safe to say that Ben's going to play. The other guys right now, including Carlos Davis, we're not sure.
Yeah, and then now kind of fast forward and putting pieces of the puzzle together, and I would like you to reach into your drawer and pull out the tinfoil hat that I have sent you.
It's already on.
Okay.
Before every show.
All right. The Steelers had, obviously on Tuesday is the day that they announced their protection practice squad, 4 players on the practice squad that they gonna protect, and well, we can string together a lot of news right here. The Steelers signed Taco Charlton to their practice squad, former first-round draft pick of the Dallas Cowboys. I think the guy that better known as the guy that the Cowboys drafted other than T.J. Watt out of Michigan in the first round, I think in 2017 there, obviously has bounced around a lot of places since then. They signed him to the practice squad on Tuesday. They listed him as a defensive end. I threw a flag on that one, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit more in a minute. But they turned around, and Charlton was one of the 4 players that they protected on the practice squad, along with Derek. Help me with the last name.
Tuska.
Obviously the kid out of, I think, North Dakota State that they signed to the practice squad right before the start of the regular season there. So depending on what you think the Steelers consider Taco Charlton, which to me the tape says edge, outside linebacker, and not a true Steelers defensive end, that's technically kind of 2 outside linebacker types protected. Right. On your practice squad. This is the first time that Derek has been protected. Obviously, the first time that Charlton has been protected. And then you have 2 guys, obviously, outside linebackers in Alex Highsmith and Derek Watt, T.J. Watt dealing with groin injuries. Then, do I need to loosen up this chin strap on this tinfoil hat?
No, I think you're right. And Derek Watt's probably pretty close from playing outside linebacker at this point, the way these guys are banged up. Yeah, I mean, certainly that would speak to some uncertainty and discomfort with, status of Highsmith and T.J. Watt when you sign Charlton, who I agree is probably going to be more of an edge guy, and then you protect someone like Tuska, who's an actual outside linebacker. We know that for sure. So, I mean, we'll just wait and see. Obviously, Watt's not a guy who needs to practice a lot to play. So if he has a chance to play by Saturday, Sunday, then he's going to do it. But, groin injury is just really tricky. You can go out there and feel good and warm up and tweak something again, or just not feel that great making a cut or something like that. So who knows? Stay tuned is the approach right now.
I mean, I obviously feel a little bit better, but, Alex Highsmith finished that game and really looked, kind of no worse for wear. I would think, and this is dangerous for me, but, it's groins. I'm going to speculate when I have 4 of them there to speculate on. I would speculate that Alex Highsmith's groin probably isn't as bad as T.J. Watt's groin, and that Highsmith has the better chance of the 2 to play right now. But, things can obviously change in a hurry. Now, you could probably get away with one of those guys, obviously, not playing and then call up one of those guys, say Derek Tuska from the practice squad to dress, and then basically you would roll into the game with, let's say, Highsmith, Melvin Ingram, and then Jameer Jones, and then your other guy is break glass in case of emergency type situation. But if you don't have both of those guys, you're talking about Jameer Jones and Melvin Ingram, and then trying to spell those two guys with Tuska, and who knows? We'll have to see. I would think that it's premature to think that Charlton's going to get promoted, by the weekend. But if he does,
right.
Something not great has happened.
All I got to say, Dave, is thank goodness for Melvin Ingram, both his play and his availability. That signing looks better and better by the day. And so obviously you can't predict injuries, but you can certainly protect yourself against injuries, and the Ingram signing has helped accomplish that. But yeah, today's injury report, I'm sure it's not out yet as of this recording. It's going to look like a CVS receipt. It's going to be super, super long, I'm sure. But, we'll see what that Friday report looks like, and that'll be our best gauge.
Might look like the Raiders injury report last week. Those things, boy, I write slow enough as it is, and you put 25 names on there. You want to really slow me down. It's going to be pretty long, I have a feeling, Wednesday, and there might be a couple of those veteran days included in that there. So
right.
I'm willing to bet it's the Wednesday injury report's a lengthy list, and then obviously we'll see what happens with the most notable guys, Ben and Deontay and Bush and Hayden and TJ Watt as the week progresses here.
Absolutely. Any other thoughts on Taco? Do you want to spend any more time talking about that? And you touched on it briefly there, just about his background, former first-round pick, and had bounced around and not do well with Dallas. Obviously, he's still in the practice squad right now, so he's not part of the 53. But with the way injuries are, that could change by Sunday.
I haven't gone deep into his film, but I deep enough to see whether or not how much he played on his feet. Because if memory, look, this is a guy that the Steelers had a little bit of interest, I think, dating back to that draft. I think they heavy presence at Michigan, which they have come to do, it seems like, over the years there. But I don't remember him playing on his feet as much at Michigan. Now he has since, especially time with the Miami Dolphins, and then with the Kansas City Chiefs there. So I think it's pretty obvious, unless they're going to get him to bulk up. He's more of an edge than he is anything else. Now, you did bring up an interesting thing in the in a direct message chat last night that, I don't know, maybe this is a guy that you can 3-tech pass rush as, but even then, it doesn't feel like it's something that he's done a lot of.
Yeah, it does seem like, and I really hadn't watched any film, and by the time people listen to this, or Jonathan Hightrader will have a report up on Taco Charlton, so we'll get more familiar with him. But going through some clips from you, me, Tyler Wise, Josh Carney, it felt like he's more of an edge guy. He's a big guy, listed 6'6", 270, but probably going to play more as an edge type of guy. And in the Steelers system, a lot of these guys are playing with their hand down, so you don't even always have to play on your feet here in Pittsburgh these days. So he's probably going to be more of an edge weapon.
I would agree there. And obviously, as we mentioned, Tyson Alualu went to IR. Henry Mondeau, as we predicted, was promoted or signed off of the practice squad there. So that's where they stand roster-wise right there. And then the other two protections on the practice squad were Karl Joseph and Jalen Samuels. Kind of a head-scratcher why they want to keep protecting Jalen Samuels there. And really no sign that Karl Joseph's headed to the 53 yet,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so far it just feels like he's insurance right now. Nothing that's indicating a promotion for him, but we'll see if injuries change any of those plans this weekend. Dave, Mike Tomlin speaking on Tuesday. I don't know where you want to begin with this. I think the one question a lot of Steeler fans have had, and we've both gotten this question a lot, and Mike Tomlin was also asked about it Tuesday, was where is Derek Watt? Where is number 44? Could a fullback be used in the Steelers offense to try to get this run game going? And Tomlin said, quote, in response to asking, is Watt an option? He said, that's an option as well. He says, quote, we make decisions week in and week out based on matchups and our perceived strengths versus their potential perceived strengths. Derek is a valued member of our team, etc. Just went on to say that some weeks he'll be featured, some weeks he will be not be featured, and obviously the first 2 weeks of the season, he has not been featured on offense.
And as you and I said, we're not opposed to seeing Watt earlier in games, but I mean, to what degree I think people think that they want or think that they will see a guy like Derek Watt on the field might be two different things there. 2 or 3 plays here and there, especially in the first half, not bad, especially if it works, right? I mean, if you put him on the field and you get some of that lead, that lead stuff, and it produces some successful plays, well, then you're probably going to want to get running back out there next series for a couple plays on top of it there. But I don't think we're looking at something like, unless the Steelers have a lead in the fourth quarter and are trying to take the air out of the football, I don't think we're going to see Derek Watt hit like the 10, 12, 13 snap area on offense. It's a good sign if it did. I mean, if we get to late Sunday night, we say, how about that? Derek Watt played 15 offensive snaps. Then we're probably celebrating the Steelers win.
Right.
I would think. However, don't be surprised if we get to halftime. We're saying, man, Derek Watt played, well, it's good that they got Derek Watt out there, but Derek Watt only played 4 snaps. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think any of us or anybody, including me and you, are against putting him out on the field. I just think that what people envision in their head with putting him out on the field is a little bit different than reality, unless a lot of injuries happen here, because I just personally don't see him playing like 10 snaps in the first half.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for, getting Watt on the field a little bit to try something different with this run game to see if we can get any sort of, different results. This run game certainly needs the help right now, but I know I'm not going to fool myself into believing that Derek Watt is the cure-all to this running game. He's certainly not. The issues with this run game go far deeper than the lack of a fullback, and it's a lot of stuff up front. And even if you have a fullback in the game and your O-line isn't finishing their blocks or doing that one small thing to make the play, then your running game's still not going to be a whole lot better. So I think they should use them some, more than they have, which has been nothing so far. But I think the issues go far deeper than just the absence of Derek Watt.
You asked me the other show their success rates and all like that. And look, this is because they're not handing the ball off a lot to running backs so far in 2 games. It's a small sample size, but it's a size nonetheless, and it's something that I track weekly. Just 10 of the Steelers' 28 total runs by running backs. This is running backs only. This is not the tremendous scat back Juju Smith-Schuster stats added in here or anything like that, or the end arounds to Chase Claypool or the fleet of foot Ben Roethlisberger scrambles. Kind of thing there. This is running back runs only, which so far have been 28, which 26 have been Najee. 2 others have been Benny Snell. Just 10 of those 28, that's 35.7% have been successful runs so far this year. And by the way, 35.7% is less than 50%.
I'm glad you walked me through that one. Man, that's got to be among the worst in football. 35. I know it's 2 games, small sample size, as you mentioned, but 35.7 is really, really ugly.
5 of 14 on 1st and 10 runs by running backs, which is right there at that 35, 34, 30. It's not better, Bob. Basically, so 5 of 14 on 1st and 10 runs, successful there. And I don't want to split hairs here, but maybe it is worth doing it. Of the successful, let's see here. I mean, it goes to show you that some of the successful runs were on downs other than first down. Hold on here. Let me sort this here. Get the old spreadsheet warmed up here. Of the successful runs, 1 came on a 2nd and 4, which means all you needed was 2 yards to have a successful run. And guess how many yards they got?
Gonna guess 2.
You would be correct, sir.
I was hoping I wouldn't be very wrong.
And 1 other was a second and 1 a successful run, and you only needed 0.5 yards on that one. They got 2. One other was a 1st and 5, and you needed just 2 yards on that to be a successful run. They got 2. And another one was a 2nd and 4, was a successful run. So even some of these successful runs, let's say on 2nd down, are ones where you're only they only got 2 yards or less. So yeah, they count. All right. I'm not saying they don't count, but sure would be nice to have a 2nd and 4 be a 14-yard run, if you get what I'm saying there. So it's not great. And people saying, well, all right, you guys have beaten us over the head and said they're not great. What can they do to get it better? Well, it's exactly what you and I talked about the other day, Alex. Specifically some plays in that Raiders game. There are at least 4 plays, I think, of the run. They didn't have many runs. Obviously the other game against the Raiders by the running backs there, but where one guy was the difference in that thing not popping wide open there. And come to find out, Zach Banner was asked about that during his radio show on Tuesday afternoon. and what does Zach Banner say? Oftentimes it's just one guy there. And, not always the same guy, obviously, but it just goes to show you just one guy in there. And look, is this unique to the Steelers? No. You can go around to all 22 film every week and pull out failed running plays, and it's probably one guy that's causing it. The problem is that it's a higher percentage in Pittsburgh, I think, or if there is a one guy failing, that they're not overcoming it. And we did see that in that counter run that popped for them against the Raiders that we already talked about, that someone was in the backfield blowing it up, but they worked through that and got a big run off of it. They're going to have to figure out how to run successfully. And look, what are defenses doing? They're doing single high, right? Most of the time against Roethlisberger. That obviously results in a defensive back being, whether or not he's a robber or whether or not he is in the box or not. But they're gonna continue to see these one high looks in there. So you have one or two choices. You're going to have to learn how to run on single high looks, or you're going to have to learn how to throw down the field away from the middle of the field on these single high looks. That's it. But I'm a firm believer that if they don't, Ben Roethlisberger does not need to throw, and we throw out the loose term 40 times a game. Well, it's all percentages based on the amount of plays that you have. It just worked out perfectly that he attempted 40 passes this past week and all. That's not what you're after here, because he's going to you don't need him to take the amount of hits that he took in this game against the Raiders either there. So until this team figures out how to start running successfully and running successfully more often, then there's not a lot to get excited about, to be honest with you.
And I plan on doing a video later this week, next day or two, on the run game struggles against the Raiders, and to illustrate the point that you've made and we talked about on Monday, and that Zach Banner's referring to, about those just small, little, minute misses in the run game, where just one guy not securing his block, or just one small thing being off that's stopping some of these runs from being more successful than they ultimately are. And it really goes back to that just really poor first down offense in my mind, where they're 29th right now, averaging 4 yards per play on 1st and 10 of runs and passes. And until that number improves, this offense is going to continue to spin its wheels, because if you're in 2nd and long, it turns into 3rd and long. You can't pass protect. The pass rush is going to pin their ears back and get after the quarterback. So until that first down number changes, you're not going to see, I don't think, dramatically better results for this offense.
Do you want to see them try to help this running game, or work on trying to get this running game better with a more spread type offense, with more motion, trying to bring guys out of the box with that, or with a fullback where you probably got at least one or two tight ends on the field, and you're inviting even more, I guess, congestion inside the box at that point?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. At this point, I'm just trying different things to get a feel for what works best. And I mean, they haven't done really a lot of either of those things so far in terms of a fullback or a lot of pre-snap motion in the run game to try to create some window dressing. Both have their pros and cons. I mean, when it comes to the 8 in the box, really, it's not even about 8 in the box to me. It's about box count. Are you +1? Are you even? Are you -1? Those kinds of things. And if you're if you have numbers, then you should be able to run the football well. If you don't, then you probably need to throw the ball or check out of the run. Whatever the case is. So
here's the thing. They've had the numbers a lot of times in a lot of these instances where they should be able to block it up, right?
Sure. I mean, right. I mean, there were times against Buffalo, I think in particular, where they were -1. They were short a guy, and that made things tough. But against the Raiders, there were certainly opportunities that were just missed, were just poor execution.
All right. So, I mean, this line has some athleticism in it that we haven't really seen in across it completely for several years. I mean, they ran some outside zone against Buffalo, and once again, nothing cracked, but it sure looked like it was close. Do we need to see more outside zone from this team, and at least get teams thinking that we can't shoot these gaps because we're going to have to play the chorus line up front here to make sure, that kind of stuff. I think I would like to see them try to run some more of that stretch, that outside zone where you're fanning out the front of that defense, and you're giving Najee Harris, some opportunities to pick and choose there.
Yeah, I think the ball in the perimeter isn't a bad way, whether that's outside zone or the crack toss play, which they've run a little bit, and I think that's an effective way. It gets leverage and angles and get your athletic guys out in space, so maybe some more of that. But it's really just some of that minute execution stuff that doesn't need to be changed radically scheme-wise, but just has to be changed individually and technically speaking. I mean, if you do that, then I think you're going to start to get good results.
And then, look, it's not just the offensive lineman. I think I highlighted one play where Gentry and Claypool on that right side both don't do a good. And, look, you're asking Gentry to base block and end like that. Is
that on the pull play where they pulled it to the right?
I don't remember if there was a pull on that or not. All I know is that Gentry, I'll have to go back. I looked at so many of them yesterday. All I know is that Gentry was unable to hold his block. Claypool essentially missed at the second level there. So that hole that Najee went to the right there closed in a hurry. But another thing, not only that, if Najee presses the line a little bit more than he did, there's a lane over there to the left. Now, is it a lane that's going to get him 8 yards, or is it a lane that's going to just give him a successful run of 4 or 5 yards? I don't know, but if you press it a little bit more before committing to the right there, there might have been something over there to that side. So once again, it's just not the offensive linemen that are failing in this either. It's the tight end in some circumstances and Chase Claypool, and then some on the running back as well too. And then later in the game there, you had Eric Ebron trying to block down, to clear out, I think, the end over that on that side, and didn't do a good job of that, and that created a fail on that side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to hear Mike Tomlin tell it, there's two competing thoughts and issues they're trying to work through. He says, quote, "It's development," referring to the run game. "It doesn't happen in an instant. It doesn't happen overnight. We're sensitive to that, but at the same time, there's urgency because we've got ball games to win in the midst of all this." So that's the issue, is that, yes, it's going to take time. We knew this offensive line, totally rebuilt, revamped, new coaching staff, etc., wasn't going to look perfect in an instant. But the NFL season is short, Dave, and you're trying to figure this stuff out and win, and those are two, obviously, thoughts that kind of butt up against each other.
Boy, you look around the league, though, and you look at what, I hate to keep throwing out the example of Baltimore, but, 3 brand new backs over there. And, yeah, I know, it makes it a lot easier when you have to concern yourself with a running quarterback. But not just Baltimore. You look around the league and you think, oh, man, I wish the Steelers could run the ball like that.
Yeah, plus Baltimore's O-line's totally different. No Stanley, no Orlando Brown.
It's not very good.
Ari at right tackle. Yeah, I mean, they've had a ton of changes there.
And yet they're still able to run the football. You look at Green Bay and what Green Bay was able to do the other night there, and just staying with it kind of thing there. So look, people say, well, you got to throw to set up the run. Well, good luck with that. If you want to get one person out of the box there and force teams to play more cover two, then you're going to have to start whooping people. Unfortunately, to help beat some of this cover one stuff that plays into Ben's wheelhouse, and we'll get into this more. I'm way out there now, but you better start learning to check that dump off to Najee Harris a little bit more, and start utilizing him as a receiver underneath to kind of invite teams to respect that more. Using the running back out of the backfield, whether it be on choice routes, and we did see that obviously on that touchdown to Najee the other day there. You better start using some of that, and you get the ball out quick like that, you probably not going to get Ben Roethlisberger hit as much there. So they need to figure this out, and a lot of it's execution.
Yeah, I mean, I get the idea of throwing to set up the run, but if that was true, Steelers would have been the best team running the football last season, because all they did was throw, and they still couldn't run the football. And they threw it because they couldn't run the football, obviously. So I think some of those things make sense on paper, but when you really look at the actual reasons why this run game is struggling, it is some of the just nuanced execution technique stuff up front by this offensive line.
Right, and oftentimes it's one guy, and I think you're going to be pointing that out here tonight or tomorrow with some of these clips that we pulled.
Right. So Mike Tomlin talking about the run game. Obviously, he asked a ton of questions about that. Also, what else was Mike Tomlin asked about on Tuesday that kind of caught your ear, Dave?
Oh, you caught me off guard there. Let me pull up the transcript here real quick here. What about the no huddle stuff? Finally, but they know how to make mountains out of molehills, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting, because this all stems from the backtrack in that context. Then after the game, Sunday was asked about lack of no huddle, I believe it was, or made a comment about it, saying that it really wasn't part of the plan, or they don't really have no huddle. And then Mike Tomlin was asked about that Tuesday and said that just was the game plan for Tuesday, and that just was how things were, or for Sunday, that was how things were planned against the Raiders. But then Ben talking today was also saying about how the no huddle has changed and shifted, and they don't have as much freedom overall because there is the newness with Matt Canada. So what's fact, what's fiction, how you want to determine and come to a conclusion on that, I think is up for interpretation. But Ben's hinting at least that the no huddle has changed a bit.
All right, and Jameer Jones, Tomlin on Jameer Jones, I believe you wrote that up.
Yeah, just kind of was asked about Jameer Jones and how he's played, and Tomlin praised him for the solid job that he's done, and got his first defensive snaps out there on Sunday against Vegas because of the injury to T.J. Watt, and obviously his opportunity and a chance for play time remains fairly decent this week, assuming that one of those guys, whether that's Watt or Highsmith, can't play.
And I think the other really notable thing there, I guess, was all those tricky groins.
Yeah, and Mike Tomlin also just talking about the replacements for Tyson Alualu, and Isaiah Bugg's going to be next man up at nose tackle, and hopefully Carlos Davis comes back to be a sub-package pass rusher. But the man in the middle to replace Tyson is going to be Isaiah Buggs.
Disappointed that I wonder if that's just because Carlos is coming off the knee injury, or if they firmly believe that Buggs is the better option. If Buggs right now, if Carlos Davis is healthy this week, all right, and Buggs is your better option, then that's not great for Carlos Davis.
Well, Buggs is better against the run, and he always has been. So in terms of that 3-4 base nose tackle, Buggs is better against the run. Davis is a better athlete, better pass rusher. So I think that's how they're going to divvy up those roles.
Okay. Hopefully, it'd be interesting to see both those guys try to fill in there. And then obviously you have Henry waiting in the wings there. You would think, assuming Carlos can dress, if Carlos is healthy, he dresses, right?
I would assume so.
All right, so that leaves it down to, I think, Henry Mondeau or Isaiah Loudermilk, right? Assuming the injury list isn't long enough to fill up the inactive list, right?
True, yeah. If they only dress 5, then only one of Mondeau or Loudermilk would get a hat.
All right, and Mike Tomlin asked to talk about those tricky groins and just the degree of the injury changes and the prognosis and the player himself, blah blah blah. That's in Dr. Mel's wheelhouse, less so than, even though I'm not afraid to talk about groins. But he gave a longer answer than what I thought he would.
Dave, after going through the Raiders game and the All-22 version, and have your thoughts evolved at all based off of what you saw, based on Monday's conversation to today, or have they kind of remained the same?
I mean, that game's not going to get Ben Roethlisberger in the Pro Bowl this year, but I thought it was better than what most seemed to be thinking it was with him. I definitely think it was better than his game against the Bills. Once again, he missed some throws in there. He missed a check down, an easy check down to Najee Harris in there that could have got some positive yards. What do you think about people on the sack that he had on the max protection there with Juju coming over, I guess, kind of on a dig post or whatnot there? People are thinking that, to me, I think that was all designed to go on the outside to Deontay on that side, and then for some reason he didn't like the look last minute there. The linebackers kind of sunk on that. You have a middle of the field safety in that as well too, lurking there. You clip a still frame of it there, and people say, "Oh yeah, you should have gone there," but you don't know the speed of the game, and probably going to have to put a little bit of air underneath that ball because the linebacker in the middle there is just, it's too easy sometimes to look at that and say, well, he should have made that throw to that guy there. The question I would have for him is why, when he cocked that thing back, why didn't he just throw it down that side to Deontay, because there's only a 3-man route anyway, I think. Because of the max protection on that there. So why did he cock that thing back to throw it and not throw it, and then eat it against a max protection and for a max protection sack?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The throw to Juju over the middle, to me, it was less about the linebacker's presence, but it was the safety on top of Juju, and then the other safety that would have been in that window that Juju was running towards. And are you going to get your receiver killed that way? So I understand why Ben didn't throw it to Juju on that particular play.
What else? Once again, Ben not perfect in there, but the deep ball to Claypool, that was a difference maker, right there. Did Ben expect him to be outside more? Did Ben, little intricacies like that we'll never know.
Yeah, I think Ben has to get that ball to the inside more, because Claypool is one inside that corner, is playing outside leverage on that deep ball.
Right. So, I mean, that's one throw that Ben, you'd like to see Ben make in that instance there. He took a lot of hits. I thought he did a good job getting a couple of those things out and completed, to be quite honest with you there. But once again, it wasn't good enough by any stretch of the imagination there. And then the fact that you just can't run the football really compounds the problem with him. And he's not throwing to the middle of the field past 12 yards past the line of scrimmage, because I think I counted up 22 actual pass plays that it was either like cover 1 or cover 3 where there's a middle of the field safety, right? So, either you're going to have to do a better job of putting a middle of the field safety in conflict, and then choosing wisely from there, throwing to the middle of the field, or you're going to have to start doing things. You're going to have to start winning these, throwing deep on the outside and winning those deep balls, or you're going to have to start dumping the ball, running if it's cover 1, man cover 1, then you're going to have to start rubbing these guys off underneath, on some quick passing, crossing routes, mesh concepts, or dumping the ball off to the running back there. I mean, same old thing. I mean, it's not like that any of this is new here, but he's not magically going to stop seeing cover 1, cover 3, middle of the field situations. And really the only time you're going to see cover 2 situations when it's 3rd and 17, 2nd and 17, where they just trying to keep a lid over the top there.
Yeah, my just thoughts on the game from a passing game standpoint was I saw an offensive line much more so in this game than week 1 against Buffalo that really struggled with some of the games and twists and stunts that the Raiders threw at them. That Raiders D-line dominated that game, run and pass, and offensive linemen not on the same plane, on the same level. They're not passing stunts off correctly, and then the Raiders just started toying with them. We found that coffeehouse stunt that Jefferson and Crosby ran, that fake stunt, and that's a really tough play. It's a really high-level play, so kudos to the Raiders, but B.J. Finney just gets completely fooled, backup guard, obviously coming into the game to replace Trey Turner. So just an offensive line that really struggled with communication and stunts and just playing together and keeping a pocket, and it just was really ugly start to finish.
Yeah, and it goes back to once again. I mean, you can't expect week in, week out for Ben Roethlisberger to have to drop back that many times in a game, especially if it's not quick passes. If there's a situation where he has to hold the football in, because I mean, he took some. There's about 3 hits in that game, man. That they were pretty hard hits.
Surprised it's only a pec injury he's dealing with right now. He got just destroyed in that game.
Right. I mean, he took one right. I mean, a couple of them right up in the gut. No wonder he's hurting. Heck, I'd still be in the hospital right now. So, I mean, my takeaway is, I guess you better. We've said this all off season. You better figure out a way to run the football. I don't care if you have to throw 22 personnel out there to get it done. If that's what it takes to run the football to make Ben Roethlisberger a better, make the passing game better, then so be it.
Right.
But until you get, and I know people are tired of me harping on it, and I still am convinced about this, Alex. Ben Roethlisberger's like number 3 or number 4 on my concern list, to be honest with you. If you don't have a defense keeping you in games, which they did up until 9 something left against the Raiders, if you don't have a running game that can consistently run this thing around 50% success rate, and if you don't have decent offensive line play, none of it matters when it gets to the Ben Roethlisberger on a checklist. He's more than capable of winning you games if you have the rest of that in line. Otherwise, if you were expecting him to come out and go empty, like he had to do several times last year, and throw the ball every down and make up plays on the go and throw short and run long, then he's not going to make it through the season.
Right. Yeah. This offense, and by extension to me, this team won't get to where it needs to go and wants to be until this run game improves. So you have to do everything in your power to try to make this run game work. Because if you don't do that, everything else kind of becomes moot at that point. Then for Ben in the offensive line, your quarterback's going to get hit. It's going to happen. Let's hope it happens less and less, but help your quarterback up. So you mentioned at the top, that's kind of, and again, people, the response to that was, well, don't let your quarterback get hit. And I understand that, but it just kind of illustrates this is a young offensive line, a new offensive line. They're learning obviously how to play, and they're learning about the little things like help your quarterback up whenever he gets destroyed, as he did on that 1 4th down play.
I think Trey Essex agreed with you.
I think so. I think his answer was pretty clear, saying it was, I will censor myself here, but say it was BS is what Trey Essex said, and I think Zach Banner echoed those thoughts as well.
Right, and congrats to you on manipulating the rest of the media this week.
Yeah, we're just a blog, though, Dave. So you know how that goes.
Yeah.
Talk about the Steelers defense here, all 22. Probably less of a conversation to have there. To me, my thoughts really didn't change a lot from watching the game live to watching the all 22. Cam Hayward, again, just out of his mind. Strongest dude on the field, one of the best guys on the field. And it just came down to allowing that big touchdown the Ruggs, which is on Minka Fitzpatrick. Yeah,
a couple of missed tackles, obviously, you'd like to have back. And kept Josh Carney busy this week here. But that was not. It was not the overall difference of the game. I mean, my takeaway was Derek Carr was very good in this game. They had some key catches by a few people. I still can't get over that one that Hunter Renfrow made over there on the right side there, for sure. I mean, you kept a lid on Waller for the most part, and that's one of the keys to the game that we went into this thing discussing there. You were able to do that there. Ruggs got away from you a couple times, and then most notably, I mean, that was a huge, and props to Tyler Wise. I thought Tyler did a great job. So, and I know Tyler listens to the podcast. No, I thought he did a great job. The turning point. There are a couple articles on Steelers Depot. if you despise me or you despise Alex, I don't know why you would despise Alex. I can understand why you despise me. But if you don't want to go to the site to read any of my stuff or Alex's stuff, man, there are a couple. Anything Dr. Mel writes, you need to get to the site to read. Tom Mead and his Tom 10 Takes is just something. I even got on out. I said, where's the Tom 10 Takes? It got lost in your email this week. Make sure you go read that. Tyler is doing a weekly post on the Turning Point. Jonathan Heighturner doing a film room, I think, almost every day. Right now there. So there's a lot of good stuff, but back to Tyler, I thought Tyler did a good job of that arches concept that the Raiders ran on that touchdown to Ruggs. I thought he did a great job of breaking that down, and look, it was pretty cut and dry to me. I mean, yeah, Witherspoon, could have probably done a better job of staying on that shoulder with Ruggs, but I thought Ruggs did a good job of nodding him off on the outside there. Minka just kind of got caught just enough there, and then when you have your guy, when you're blitzing a guy like Norwood, here's the difference of not having Mike Hilton, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Hilton gets home on that play.
Does Hilton 100%. Impact that timing of that enough that ball's incomplete?
100%, because Norwood got slowed down twice. Once initially by the tight end coming off the line, and then even at the very end, Norwood kind of had to change directions a little bit and slow down. It just felt like he was tentative to hit Carr, and Hilton would have not been tentative to go after Carr on that play. So
it's seconds and inches. It's a game of seconds and inches there. And, I mean, Minka, to his credit, he got flipped, and, he almost – and what they call almost not giving up a deep completion.
A touchdown.
Right. To his credit, he recovered nicely, and you get to see that combine skill set in there for sure. Unfortunately, with the all 22 end zone look there, but to me, 9 minutes left in the game. That was a huge, and that followed the Steelers getting a touchdown to Najee Harris. There was a third and whatever play. It just a huge turning point in the game. And sometimes, you get that play and you don't have Chase Claypool come down with a ball in the end zone. You hate to boil it down to 2 or 3 plays sometimes, but that was my take when it comes to the defense. I thought they did a lot right in their overall. But the few times that they didn't, a few guys getting away from them on some missed tackles was the difference in the game. So
yeah,
we knew that the defense was going to have to keep this team in some games throughout the season, and they did. But on the flip side, you're not going to win many games with your offense scoring, 17 points or whatever.
Yeah, just not good enough. So I think that's a good summation of our thoughts there. Dave, let's take a break here and talk to our buddy Paul Dehner Jr., who covers the Bengals for The Athletic. You can follow him on Twitter at Paul Dehner Jr. A really good conversation with him, so I'll be back in a moment to talk with Paul.
Okay, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. It is Wednesday. It is Week 3 Wednesday. Pittsburgh Steelers hosting the Cincinnati Bengals at Heinz Field on Sunday at 1 o'clock Eastern Time. You know what that means then. It means that it's beat writer time, and it means that it's Bengals beat writer time, and then that, of course, means that it's Paul Dehner Jr. time, Paul covers the Bengals and has for several years now at The Athletic. Make sure you go over there and visit his stuff over there. You can also follow Paul on Twitter at Paul Dehner Jr., I believe is the Twitter address there. Everybody should be familiar with that. If not, it'll be linked in the post of this podcast as well, too. So with that, Paul, happy Wednesday. Welcome back to the Terrible Podcast.
What's going on? Good to be back.
Yeah, glad to have you back, too. And kind of a really, it is a interesting week here. Everybody's 1-1 in the AFC North right now, and then the first division game of the season for both the Bengals and the Steelers. The Bengals obviously 1-1, coming off of two kind of a weird start of the season there. NFC North games back to back, beat the Minnesota Vikings, I believe, in Week 1, and then turn around and lost to the Chicago Bears this past week here. So with that, we didn't get a chance to really talk too much to you. Really any, I don't think, during the offseason there, Paul. So let's start with this kind of heading into the season. kind of a 30,000-foot look at the Bengals, kind of the key additions there, maybe a couple of, key draft picks there, and, what all has transpired here in the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, the big chunk of the offseason was really twofold. It was the question of how are they going to try to fix this offensive line. I mean, that's been the storyline of this team for a while. It was the storyline of last year when Joe Burrow took a lot of punishment and ended up tearing his ACL. Burrow's rehab went as good as you possibly could imagine. I mean, he came in, he was practicing at the start of training camp and was good to go for the opener. It's had some iffy moments early on in camp as he was kind of trying to get through that last piece of the rehab of the mental aspect of getting used to being out there in the pocket again for the first time. But once he cleared that hurdle and kind of got straight, he's really kind of been on top of his game as far as, looking a little bit like his old self for the most part. There's still some stuff there that we'll get into, and then the addition of Jamar Chase and not taking Penei Sewell in the number 5 overall pick was, of course, the big controversy all over, the Bengals world, and really a big NFL topic about how you team build. And they felt like, look, they signed Riley Reif to play right tackle. They have Jonah Williams playing left tackle, who was a number 11 overall pick, and felt like they could find serviceability on the inside. So they went with Jamar Chase and drafted a guy named Jackson Carman out of Clemson in the second round to try to cover, hoping that he would start at guard. And you could kind of check both boxes and add the explosive receiver and still solidify your offensive line rather than going Sewell and taking a lesser receiver later on. Well, Chase has been great. He's added the explosiveness they looked for with 2 deep balls caught already, but Jackson Carman hasn't panned out to the point that he's not starting week 1. He probably will at some point this year, but they had to go with a couple of sort of journeyman type veterans, and Quentin Spain at left guard and Xavier Su'a-Filo at right guard, along with Trey Hopkins, who's an okay center, who's back. So it's kind of the same cast up front and maybe a little bit improved. Having Reif instead of Hart helps, but there's a lot of the same issues exist that have existed here, and that is the line. But they're more explosive at receiver without doubt with Chase. And so it's sort of, they're figuring that out. They're getting through that right now. On the defensive side of the ball, they just spent a ton of money. I mean, they have, the last 2 years, they've invested so much free agency money into the defense, and it might be paying off because through 2 weeks, the defense has been significantly improved. Most of it's been up front. Trey Hendrickson is in, Carl Lawson is out, and it's kind of an even swap. Hendrickson had 13.5 sacks for the Saints last year. They added Larry Ogunjobi, who Steelers fans are familiar with, who's playing defensive tackle. They feel like they've really unleashed him playing strictly 3 technique at this point, and it's looked like it. He's been really good. DJ Reader missed most of last season, who they paid $14 million to in 2020 to be, the highest paid nose tackle in the league at that point. He's looked really good, back healthy this year. Sam Hubbard, they gave a contract extension. I mean, there's nothing about money up front. I mean, they have just invested, and it seems to be showing off. And they replaced their entire secondary as far as corners go. You guys know Mike Hilton, of course, up in the slot. And they have Chidobe Awuzie, brought over from Dallas. Trey Waynes, who they signed a $14 million contract to in 2020, but didn't play because he tore his pec. Still hasn't played. There's a chance he might play because he has a hamstring that's kept him out the first 2 weeks. It might play on Sunday. It's new faces. It's just, they're trying to find a way to put this very well-paid collection of guys together. And thus far, it has looked very good. But that's kind of the big picture, is off the same one you've had. Offensive line struggling, wondering if you can keep Burrow upright. If you can, you feel like you can move it. And now a defense that they paid a lot of money to, and they're waiting to see if it pays off.
Yeah, all that money being spent in free agency, I was wondering if everything was okay with Mike Brown.
Yeah, I know. Talk about a departure. It really, you bring that up. It really has been. It does seem that they said, look, Zach Taylor and his staff, we're going to let you do what you want to do. We're going to let you build your roster. And they didn't like the roster here. They didn't feel like it fit what they wanted. This is the coach's team, man. There's only 13 players left from 2 years ago when he got here. I mean, everybody out and all the veterans. I mean, anybody that Steelers fans are familiar with from the days when the Bengals were still competing with them well. is gone. I mean, this offseason alone, Geno Atkins, A.J. Green, Giovanni Bernard, it goes down the line. All those guys that were still remaining have exited. And it's a whole new group, and there's a whole different feel to them. And they're very young. All their captains are 27 or younger. They're just they're constituted like a young group. They hope is going to kind of grow together.
My boy C.J. Uzomah is still there, though. I think seventh round pick out of Auburn. I was pretty proud. I love scouting tight ends. I love scouting edge rushers, and C.J. is one of those guys that said you better watch out for that kid. Listen, with Joe Burrow coming back from, it was kind of a rapid. Nowadays, with the medical wonders that all these guys come back from some of these knee injuries and all, a lot quicker, obviously, than they did, 15, 20 years ago and all like that. I did notice, though, and I have powered quickly through the Bengals all-22 tape from the Bears game. I haven't done so with the Vikings tape there yet. I plan to do that before Friday. But it looked like they came out. Boy, a lot of empty set there against the Bears. A lot of quick passes there. Did you kind of expect that heading into the and look, I mean, they have a lot of great weapons over there. Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, and now Jamar Chase. And then obviously you could take Joe Mixon and line him out outside and all. Was this kind of what you kind of expected here with some of this empty stuff and maybe some quick, short passes as Joe Burrow maybe builds up some trust a little bit more in that knee?
It's a great point. I mean, they really leaned heavier into it. Stuff they did last year. They did a lot of empty because Burrow likes it. He loved it at LSU. He felt like it really accentuated his strengths of being able to see the whole field and process and have a presence in the pocket. And so they did some of it last year, and they realized that it's the way for them to offset the rush, is let the onus be moved to Burrow and the receivers getting open, Burrow's processing and the receivers getting open, and have it be less on the offensive line holding up for 3 seconds, which just isn't going to happen as regularly. Now, it's been a point of controversy because it didn't work out super well against the Bears. As the Bears were sitting on the routes and then getting home fairly regularly, 4 sacks there early on, and then a string of turnovers killed things late. And a lot of that, it caused frustration. Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow both after the game talked about you got to call plays that go over their heads when they're sitting on the routes like that. And you hear the number one pick and the quarterback talking about play calling after a game, and it's concerning, sure. And a lot of it does stem from this empty stuff, but they just don't want to have Burrow back there as a sitting duck at this point. It's the empty and it's a run game. I mean, they really have stuck with the run game through 2 weeks. I mean, Burrow has, I believe it's 65 dropbacks, 57 passes, something in that area. And it's just a lot less than we saw last year. The fewest passes he threw in a game last year was 30 in his 10 games. Fewest passes. He's had 30 and 27 these first 2 weeks. They're trying to not sit him back there at this point a ton, as he does, as you said, figure it out, regain confidence in his knee. I do not think he looks like the scrambling pocket poise Burrow that we saw a ton of last year yet. I think he's still getting comfortable in that respect. And so they're trying to take it easy on him. Yes. So you're going to see that again this week because they're going to be scared to death of the Steelers pass rush because it's going to be even worse than what they've seen the last 2 weeks. So I would expect to see more empty, see more handing it off and trying to get Mixon going to try to offset a little bit of, the problems that they have up front, which are many.
Paul, you sort of answered the question, but just to reiterate, so has the identity of the team changed at all? I know it's only 2 games in. It can be tough to judge, but in the past, it has been a run-first team led by Joe Mixon. Has that evolved in any sort of way through the first 2 games?
I would say last year their identity was Burrow. I mean, they barely ran the ball, and they ran it poorly. I mean, Mixon only averaged 3.6 last year, and Burrow had more passes than anybody in the NFL when he went down by a long shot. They felt like he could turn it up, and he did. He had, I think 6 300-yard games out of the 10. But you guys saw in the game against Pittsburgh, the first one in Pittsburgh. I mean, it's just he takes a lot of punishment back there, and it's not really sustainable. So I think, we actually, Zach Taylor said this week, the idea of the identity of the offense is one that they run it so efficiently with Joe Mixon that it forces the other teams to bring another guy down in the box and then unleash Burrow and these receivers on a shorthanded secondary. That's the idea. The problem is they've run it okay. And when you turn on the Minnesota tape, you'll see that they actually really wore down the Vikings, and it looks good as they went on in the game. But they've done good against average boxes and heavy boxes. They are abysmal when given the light boxes. Mixon has had 13 runs against light boxes this year, and he's only averaging 3 yards per carry and only a 7% success percentage. That is miles behind the NFL average. So it's really, they've gotten what they wanted a decent amount of time, but they've proven unable to take advantage to this point when teams do go light box against them. That's really going to be an important thing to track Sunday. And going forward is the Bengals have to be making teams pay when they do choose to sit back on these receivers. That's the whole point of having the receivers.
Right.
When they sit back on you, you punish them with the run game and with a guy like Mixon. The fact that they're not doing that is hurting them right now.
That's really strange because it sounds like the idea to play the Bengals is to play too high, take away the deep pass game, and the Bengals can't run on those light boxes. Do you know why? Is there a reason why they're struggling? Because usually teams can run on light boxes, they can't run on 8-man fronts. Why are the Bengals kind of the inverse?
Right. Yeah, it goes against goes against everything happening across the league,
right.
And certainly against quality running backs. I think they're figuring it out. Frank Pollock is the new offensive line coach, who was the old offensive line coach, was here in 2018, and then they had kind of a 2-year disaster with Jim Turner, and they brought Pollock back. And it was Mixon's best year when he was with Pollock, and they're bringing in the wide zone, and that's his specialty, and it's the one thing they should be able to do. I do think they're still getting used to it, and I still think they might be figuring out whether they do or don't have the guys who can run this up front. And Mixon has left some meat on the bone too. We're in small sample size world still, so you don't want to overreact, but through 2 weeks, it's been important because it's one thing to do that when Burrow's throwing it 45 times and he's going for 300 yards and he's out there doing his thing. But it's another thing to not take advantage when you're trying to mitigate a little bit of the pressure and of what Burrow has to do early on. And this is supposed to be Joe Mixon's time, and he's been okay. He certainly was better in the opener than last week, and I think they know that at this point in time, they've really got to get him on track, taking advantage of that and finding a way to get that rhythm with his line in Pollock's wide zone. And maybe it's just taking time at this point. I don't know.
First round pick Jamar Chase had a bumpy training camp in summer. The drop passes, all the talk about that, but he's been great once the regular season has started, averaging over 22 yards per catch. What has caused that light switch to kind of flip and just evaluate his play?
I don't know what caused it to switch. I only know it wasn't on in the preseason. I mean, he had that first three weeks of camp. It was ugly. I mean, he couldn't catch it. He couldn't get a pass. He couldn't get open. When it did come to him, he was dropping it. And then all of a sudden the preseason game started. And he has this awful game against Washington where he has 3 targets and he drops all of them, all easy. And then he has a really good week of practice before the last preseason game, and Burrow comes in and plays literally 3 snaps. The whole starting offense was going to play 3 snaps in his first time out there. And the only throw they were going to call was a quick receiver screen to Chase to get his confidence back up, kind of put an exclamation point on a great week of practice that he started to look like himself. And it goes through his hands and hits him in the face. and it's just like, what is going to happen in the games? He has no history of drops.
Right.
Everybody was wondering where this is coming from, and nobody thought it was going to be a career issue, but it was, how long is it going to take this guy early in the season to get out of his head like this? And wondering how mental it is. Well, I mean, right before halftime against Minnesota, he catches his first pass on a really nice deep out. Kind of going high up the high point in the sideline. Next play, then a couple plays later, boom, 50 yards over the top, just blowing right by the corner for a touchdown. He's doing the gritty in the end zone, and it's over. And it's the loudest eruption I've heard at Paul Brown Stadium in years. It's like, okay, this is what you thought you had. this was the element you wanted. And he the same thing against Chicago late in the game as part of their comeback. He sparked the comeback. He beats the corner deep. He makes a great adjustment on a little bit of an inside underthrow. The safety and the corner run into each other, and he walks into the end zone. I mean, it's the same stuff you saw at LSU. I mean, the one against Minnesota, the people were doing cut-ups of his deep touchdown pass in the national championship against Clemson, the one he had from Burrow, the last time they played together, because it was a replica, same sideline, same beat corner, same catch, same walk into the back of the end zone and doing the gritty. I mean, he proved that was no fluke. That was not because college competition. I can do this here too. And he's given you that. And nobody thinks about drops much anymore because he kind of came out and just became that guy when the lights came on. And Joe Burrow said that would happen, and he proved prophetic.
When you look at Joe Burrow from last season, obviously a small sample size and rookie, and you expect to see some bumps in the road there. I think one of the things that stuck out was the deep ball completion percentage. And look, we're not pointing any fingers because Ben Roethlisberger's had some struggles the last several years on balls 20 or more yards down the field. But Joe, I think his percentage was even lower than Ben's last year. And then you start off, turn on that tape. And yeah, the late score obviously down the right side to Jamar Chase, the safety cheating that far side over there. Jamar just blows by the corner on that side, but he did have to kind of wait on that. Had to, and he made a nice adjustment on the football there. And as you mentioned, the two defenders crashed into each other. He walks into the end zone there. Does this seem to be is there concern? How has this deep ball been, I guess, other than that? And I know it's only been a small sample size of 2 games and then, a little bit of preseason work there. But is there some optimism when it comes to Burrow's, 20-plus yard passing abilities?
Yeah, I think, a lot of last year's issues, and it was just bad, was A.J. Green was not that guy anymore. And so many of those deep balls went to him, and they couldn't find any real connection. And, he didn't have the same top speed. He didn't have the same separation. They could never find a connection. Everything about it was bad. And so many targets went to him deep down the field that were just unsuccessful. T. Higgins took a while to kind of get that part of his game going. He finally got one against Indianapolis about mid-season last year, and it seemed to really set him off. But by the time he really just started to get going, catching everything down the field, Burrow got hurt. And so they never really, with Chase now and Higgins kind of both with that real weaponry, Burrow spent a ton of time off season working on, technique in getting more velocity on his balls and really focusing on being more efficient with the deep ball, something that he did really well at LSU. And so I think the thought is that last year is more of an anomaly of the weapons and of the kind of the pieces around and less and a lot of pressure in his face and less of who he really is. Especially now that he has some guys that can go get it. And through 2 games, he's thrown 2 deep touchdown passes and doubled last year's total. He had 1 touchdown pass of 20-plus air yards last year. It came in week 2. That was it. The Bengals only had 1 more Brandon Allen threw late in the season. They've equaled their total from all of last year already. So, I think the idea, I think they.
Paul, did we lose you? Hello?
I think we lost them.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. Now you dropped. You must have hit a bad cell area or something like that. You just dropped.
I don't know. I heard everything you guys were saying, but you couldn't hear me all of a sudden. I was like hearing everything you were saying, and I'm like, what's going on?
You got about. We only lost. You went dead about 30 seconds ago. So okay. I can piece it together. No issues. So just pick up wherever you think you left off at there.
What was I talking about?
You had just said about Chase. Burrow had just completed 1 touchdown, 1 pass, 20 air yards, and kind of pick it up from there.
Yeah, so he ends up, Brandon Allen threw a deep ball last year for a touchdown, but that was it. They had 2 touchdown passes of longer than 20-plus air yards all of last year. They've already equaled that through 2 weeks, and it's because of Jamar Chase.
When you look at the defensive side of the ball here, obviously I really like what Trey Hendrickson was doing over there, I think in New Orleans, and Sam Hubbard, obviously been around for a few years. Ogunjobi, the Steelers fans should know him pretty well, coming over from the Browns and all like that. So a nice up front. I don't know if you would necessarily consider those guys that really get after the quarterback. I mean, Trey Hendrickson had his moments over there, but what is and they obviously wrote. I think B.J. Hill even leads the team right now in sacks with 2, I think. But what has been your early impressions of the pass rush overall? Are they having to blitz? Once again, I've only gone through the Bears tape. I haven't gone through the Vikings tape. Are they having to blitz a lot to get pressure, or are they able to get sustained pressure with 4 up front?
It's been the number one positive storyline of the first 2 weeks. The reformed defensive line has been ferocious, particularly up the middle in the waves that they've been able to come in. DJ Reader has gotten. I mean, they drew. You talk about sacks. Sacks are one thing, and they've had plenty. But they drew 6 holding calls against the Vikings. It just killed the Vikings because they would have gone for sacks. They weren't fluke holding calls on a guy scrambling. They were. The quarterback's going to get killed, and they had to hold. And, Hendrickson drew a couple. DJ Reader drew multiple. Ogunjobi drew some. He even had a sack wiped out by a defensive hold in the end zone. They have been a force. I mean, we just haven't seen that around here in a while, and they make the entire defense look different. They really get after the quarterback and take advantage. Now, they've taken advantage of a couple of offensive lines that aren't super, but, the Steelers are piecing theirs together still at this point too. So I think there's an idea that this group doing what they've done through 2 weeks and the waves they've been able to play in, Hendrickson with a couple sacks, including a strip sack against Fields last week, can be a difference maker, can be the difference maker here for them again on Sunday. I can say it's certainly the most positive development for them through 2 weeks without question.
Paul, I'm sure Steeler fans would love to know what's Mike Hilton doing over with Cincinnati. Is he being used the same way Pittsburgh used him, as that kind of quasi linebacker, blitz heavy, run stuffer kind of mentality, or have they used him any differently than how the Steelers used him?
Oh no, yeah, it'll look real familiar to Steelers fans. He even stole some of the pregame the preseason motivational stuff. He said he stole Joe Hayden's loaf chart, which they would judge loafs during the preseason and in camp, and have people have to pay a fine if they get caught with a loaf, and all the money go into a pot at the end for the winners. And he said he brought it from Pittsburgh, brought it from Joe Hayden, and loved what it brought as far as accountability here at Cincinnati. And they've looked good. Hilton has looked good. They've certainly obviously used him as a blitzer. I mean, you guys know he's one of the best at that you'll see, and he's had a lot of success and gotten quarterbacks off the spot quite a bit. He had a sack stolen from him by B.J. Hill, who Hilton was coming in clear, but Hill beat his guy up the middle so quickly that he got in like 1 second before him, and I think it angered Hilton a little bit. He wanted to get that sack, but that he's that guy still. I mean, he's been really good so far, and does bring that attitude. I think that this team has lacked. A lot of, and felt like they maybe got a little piece of it back last year on that Monday night game against Pittsburgh with the Von Bell hit on Juju Smith-Schuster. They feel like they just felt like they needed so much more of that, and Hilton certainly brings it.
Yeah, so Hilton stealing the loaf chart and calling Jesse Bates the best safety in football. That hurts a lot, Paul. My last question before I'll turn it over to Dave. As you mentioned, this is a young team, kind of an evolving team, a lot of new pieces on the roster. Who are the leaders of this team, offense and defense? Who are the players that everyone looks towards in those kind of key, tough moments?
Well, I mean, outside of number 9, who's obvious. I mean, everyone always looks to him. When it's forcing an eyelash at midfield and with less than a minute left in overtime against Minnesota, and everyone in the world is thinking they're just going to try to run it up the middle, and Joe Burrow audibles to throw a 30-yard pass over the top of everybody to CJ Uzomah, and everyone's comfortable with that. That's everyone looking to a guy in the key moment and having trust in him in the key moment. I mean, and that's the kind of guy he is, and that's why people don't bet against Joe Burrow, and everyone there loves him. So it starts there. I mean, that's where everything starts with this team and with leadership, without doubt. On the defensive side of the ball, though, I mean, Von Bell, Sam Hubbard. I mean, these are guys, they tried to build a team with this kind of just relentless competitive energy. I mean, honestly, the type of energy that you see played with typically across this division that this team just hasn't done. And you're seeing that. You are seeing guys look to guys like Hubbard and Bell and Bates to be the leaders in those big moments and kind of set the tone for the type of intensity that they have to play with. And I do think that's kind of been seen a little bit, at least through a couple of weeks.
Paul, I know it's Wednesday and the first injury report of the week doesn't come out until later on today after practice. What do you expect in that thing to look like? Anything really notable that we'll be watching for the rest of this week?
You want to watch Trey Waynes. I mean, they put him on IR. They did not put him on IR to start the season because they thought there's a chance they could have him back for week 3. And we'll have to see how much he practices. My gut is he'll end up questionable on kind of a game time thing, but teams have really exposed Eli Apple, who's playing in his place as the third corner. And I'm positive that Ben Roethlisberger will be looking to do that if Waynes can't come out. So that'll be a big one to watch. And we'll be watching Xavier Su'a-Filo, their right guard, has a ding. If he can't play, second round pick Jackson Carman, who I mentioned earlier, will get his first start as a pro, and he had some rocky moments through the preseason. And, you add that to a collection that's already kind of had its issues up front. You wonder what that would look like. So that'll be another key name to watch. T. Higgins had a ding that he kind of played through on Sunday. We'll see how he's doing in kind of recovering. They called him day to day. So we'll see how serious that is. But obviously, it doesn't need to be said. They definitely need him on Sunday.
All right, as we wrap you up here, it is a little early Wednesday and all, but what's your early read on this? The Steelers can't run the ball successfully. They can't throw the football successfully down the football field more than 20 yards and get it completed that way. Roethlisberger, will avoid the middle of the field on some cover one situations there. There's a groin club that's building in Pittsburgh right now that's up to, I think, a membership of 4 right now. And so with all that, what's your early read on this? The Bengals coming in. And look, this is not a must-win game for Pittsburgh, but it's one they better win, if you ask us, on this side here, especially first game AFC North. What's your early read on this? And do not be afraid to throw out a score prediction here.
You tell me, is TJ Watt playing? Because that changes me dramatically.
I tell you,
that's the difference.
It's hard to say. He kind of tweaked that thing, and Mike Tomlin obviously treats injuries like state secrets there. But they did sign Taco Charlton to the practice squad, and he's more of an edge than he is a defensive end. So they protected 2 outside linebacker types on the practice squad yesterday. So. I don't know. I think it's going to be touch and go how he practices this week.
If TJ Watt does not play, I think the Bengals have a real chance. I think Watt wrecks this game if he plays and if he looks like himself. When you throw him and Hayward together as a combination, I don't see the Bengals having real answers for that up front. And the empty and the running game stuff, I just don't know that that's enough against this Pittsburgh defense. But I do think the Bengals defense will hold up and keep Pittsburgh relatively in check. This has a feeling of one of these
6-3.
Old school. I don't know. It should be like a 1983 Bengals Steelers till the Three Rivers. I think is kind of what we're looking at. I think it's going to be like that. I mean, I probably would lean towards the Steelers right now. I mean, I'd say Steelers, 16-13 or something like that, 16-10. But just because I don't know that the Bengals are going to have an answer for that pass rush. But if there's no Watt and there's less pass rush juice out there, I do think it gives the Bengals a chance.
All right, Paul, obviously people can get a read on this on your side of things, on the Bengals type of side of things at theathletic.com. Just go straight to the Bengals section. You also have a podcast. Tell people what days they can expect that and what's going on this week on the podcast.
Yeah, hear that podcast growling. We have up, and we'll do our game preview on Thursday, which you can get a lot of inside stuff. And Mark Caboli, who covers the Steelers for the Athletic there in Pittsburgh, will be on and chatting through some things on both sides. And we'll have the Bengals side of things. So that's up Thursday. And everything's up on the site, theathletic.com. You can just go in and you get the umbrella of everything in the NFL and the AFC North and all across everywhere for the one price. I think we have 50% off deal going on right now. So go there and subscribe.
All right, and follow Paul on the Twitter machine at Paul Dehner. That's Dehner Jr. And everybody should be well aware he's been on the show multiple times. Paul, let's do it again here in several weeks from now, and we'll get a hold of you to have you back on. And as always, Paul, thanks for coming on the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.
Sounds great. Have a good one.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. And again, our many thanks to Paul Dehner Jr. You can follow him on Twitter at Paul Dehner Jr. Dave, top-notch guest, and always glad to have him on the show.
Yeah, boy, we have him nailed down in the AFC North, don't we? Some really, really good ones. Always enjoy having Paul on. Very accommodating for us, and a guy that'll easily spend 30 minutes with you talking about it, and a guy that you could probably have on for an hour and 30 minutes and get good football talk with.
Definitely. Dave, before we get to read emails, let's again shout out our sponsor, as we do every Wednesday, our friends over at Prediction Strike. I don't know where Najee Harris' stock is at the moment. It's probably not in a great direction, but Pat Freiermuth, that stock we have in him, don't we have stock in Pat Freiermuth?
Oh, yeah.
That's going up a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I think it is. And, boy, Prediction Strike, quite an interface they have here. And if people have not checked that out yet, boy. If you're a fan of the stock market, if you're a fan of fantasy football, if you're a fan of stock rising, stock lowering, if you're a fan of making money, well then Prediction Strike has it all for you. The world's one and only sports stock market where you can buy and sell shares of your favorite athletes, build portfolios, and make real money using everything you know about the game. You can check out the Prediction Strike app on the App Store and start investing today that way. You ever heard someone say, I've had stock in that player since day one? Well, now Prediction Strike makes that a real possibility. Prediction Strike lets fans get closer to the game than ever before by buying shares of their players they love and really truly believe in. When the athlete performs well, when they grow into their potential, their stocks rise, and so does your portfolio. So how does all of that work? Well, simple. You visit PredictionStrike.com, or you get their app, you create an account, then you deposit funds in that account. You buy, sell, and hold shares of your favorite players just like you would real stocks. The value of the players will change based upon game performance and user demand, and you can trade your shares of players at any time for a profit there. So very simple, easy interface to use. I've used both the desktop version and the app version, and it really is simple. So make sure you get over there and at least check it out, and you will see I'm not lying there. So the best way to get started with Prediction Strike is to download Prediction Strike's new app in the App Store, or by visiting PredictionStrike.com. Sign up with the promo code TERRIBLE. Please make sure you sign up and use the promo code TERRIBLE, and you will receive a free share of an athlete when you deposit $20 or more. So that's PredictionStrike.com. Use promo code TERRIBLE, and I think you will really enjoy a different aspect of really kind of fantasy football stock trading, if you will, on top of it. And we appreciate them being a sponsor of the Terrible Podcast this year.
Absolutely. All right, Dave, let's get to reader emails and close out today's show.
Oh, do we have to?
Oh, I'm sure we have.
Let's see here. Jeff Arbogast writes in, good morning, guys. Correct me if I'm wrong. The Steelers do not have a wide receiver who can beat coverage and get open consistently. We have several contested pass catchers who develop that skill because they can't get open. I'm going to disagree with you there, Jeff, because, man, Deontay Johnson is a great route runner. He can beat coverage and he can consistently get open. Now, if you want to talk about a guy that can consistently take the lid off of it, and Mike Wallacing, is Mike Wallacing a verb?
Yeah, I guess mossing is a verb, so we'll use Wallacing.
All right. I mean, that's a little bit of an aspect. Oh, it was James Washington down the right side on that play, not Deontay on the sack. on a
Gotcha.
on a protection on the max protection sack. It was Washington. Anyway, they've got the receivers, I think, that can get open consistent enough, and you would like to think they have the contested pass catchers as well too there. So to me, that's not the problem. His second point is Pittsburgh does not have an O-line that can pass protect any quarterback. This contributes to Ben having to throw the ball another 2.5 seconds continually, which severely limits play calls and routes that the wide receivers can run. I think, we have seen Ben hold on to the football a little bit this year.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Is that because receivers aren't getting open? Is that a scheme thing? Is that some other issue? There's a lot of factors that could be playing into that.
Yeah, but I mean, look, their O-line has not done an adequate enough job all the way around, whether it be pass protection or run blocking. So, we'll give you that bullet point there. Number 3, the Steelers need to do something different. Teams are disrespecting the run and expecting the short pass. They need to at least try some 22 personnel occasionally. They can still pass out of this alignment and can use Juju as the wide receiver because he is our best blocking wideout. I'll be the first to say that I do not pretend to have all the answers, but I do know doing the same ineffective or failed things over and over will not make you successful. Jeff from West Virginia. Jeff, we've talked about, look, we're not opposed to putting the fullback on the field here occasionally and running some 21 or some 22 personnel and even passing out of it if you have to. Not opposed to that at all. I just don't think you're going to see it 12, 13, 14 times, in the first half.
Yeah, I just think the confliction there is the recognition that certainly, and I'm in favor of doing some things differently, but also the idea of you have to give it time and show some patience and let this group grow and develop. And if you believe they can get better, which I'm guessing the coaching staff does, that you just have to keep at it and keep working on these things. And that's kind of the confliction of you're trying to be patient as you're also trying to make it work at the same time. And that's difficult to do.
Sim Football Critic writes in, what's up, guys? As always, appreciate the coverage you guys provide on a daily basis. By far the best in the business. I want to talk a bit about Trey Norwood. I don't think he's played great, but I also don't think he's been terrible. He's actually been better than I thought. I acknowledge he has given up 2 big pass completions coming right at him in the last 2 games, but these are things you can expect from a rookie late round draft pick. Question is, would you stick with Norwood in sub package and allow him to grow, or do you explore the option of adding Karl Joseph to the mix? Thanks in advance.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like they're going all in on Norwood and just letting him play a lot. He's certainly playing a ton more than I thought he would for being a 7th-round rookie. I think we lose sight of that sometimes. But, could Joseph play in that exact role? I mean, he's been more of a strong safety, free safety type of guy. Those guys can sometimes play in the slot. But, I think they're really excited about Norwood. So I guess we're just going to let him go through some growing pains and let him get better.
I would think that's probably the way there's no sign. We'll see what happens with injuries or whatnot, but there's really no sign yet that Karl's going to be on the 53-man roster, at least not by week 3,
Right.
We'll see. Dakota writes in, hello, I'm not sure if you mentioned this, but did you realize Dan Moore is the first rookie to start at left tackle for the Steelers since the 1970 merger? You and Alex do a great job, and I appreciate all your work you put in. Yeah, I wrote about it. I think I'm the one that wrote about it.
It was a terrible take you had about it, too.
Yeah,
right?
I had a terrible take, and I think I wrote about that in one of those posts as well, too, about the significance there. So, yeah, we did know that. Let's see here. What else do we have here? Bryce, tough loss. I think the offense needs, here's where I think the offense needs to go moving forward. The Steelers want to establish more consistent offense early in this season. Then 22 has to be the focal point and engine of the offense, and it's not just slamming him into the line. Look, the run game is what it is. I expect it to wind up at 2013 levels. They have to continue to get a lot better at it, but 22 being the engine of the offense means early in the football games they need to put the football in his hands more, run, swing passes, screens, choice, angle routes, split out formation, whatever it takes to get the football early, they need to do it. He can set the tempo, he can keep them on schedule, and they build off of that success. You drafted him high, which means the time is now to get him early and often. Yeah, look, I mean, You give him the ball more, at least as a running back, on carries if you're blocking this thing up better and you were more successful. Now we did see. Yeah, look, you see him out. I mean, he's on the field constantly. So, check downs, the way they used to use Le'Veon Bell back in the day. I think you could definitely use Najee that way. You could split him out and try to stress defenses with the matchup that way. Because one thing, if you're in a cover one situation there, and you put a running back out wide, somebody's going to draw a safety or a linebacker, right?
Yeah, I'm all for seeing Harris in the design pass game a bit more. And I think, splitting him out and some empty looks, letting him have the ball in some screens and out in space. He gets one-on-one in space, as we saw in the touchdown against the linebacker. I mean, he's going to win a lot of those battles and get a lot of yak. So this team just needs to run more offensive plays in general. I mean, some of the volume issues are just a lack of snap counts of plays overall, but I would like to see the design pass game more with Najee Harris.
Yeah, look, I mean, what's the percentage of times that he's touching the football in games right now versus him being on the field? I mean, he had 10 rushes and he did have 5 catches, so that's 15 out of how many offensive plays did they have the other day? 56, I think. Mm-hmm. So 15, what's 15 divided by 56? That's a quarter of the time there. Is that enough? Is putting the ball in his hands once every 4 plays enough?
Yeah, I don't know what the number is. I don't know how that compares to past years and stuff like that.
It's not enough when the runs aren't successful because
right.
That's one too many times in.
Yeah, it's all about what is successful and what isn't successful and what's going to get you the win for that day. So, again, I would like to see some more in the design pass game. Obviously, you want to run the ball more than 10 times with him. Some of that is just circumstantial. Some of it's just what's working, what's not. But, I mean, he's on the field for all but 3 plays in the first 2 games. So he's certainly been on there and being part of the game plan and those kinds of things. So they have not been shy about using him as their every down kind of bell cow.
And once again, going back to success rates, I mean, we need to take both sides of the fence here. It's horrible side of the fence, and then the other side of the fence is it's a small sample size. So, I mean, you get, the next 5 runs are successful. I mean, you really can't start skewing those numbers in a hurry there. Mm-hmm. What I'm getting at there. So, yeah, it definitely be disappointed from what we've seen so far, but it's not like we're dealing with 100 carry sample size yet either.
Right.
So that's why we sit and we wait, But obviously, you get against Cincinnati, get in the game past the Packers. Once we get into week 5 of the season or game 5, we're going to have we should probably have some numbers to play with then at that point. And that's adjusted net yards per passing attempt, that success rates and everything like that. So they better get it figured out in a hurry. Run,
yeah,
especially the run.
Yeah, absolutely.
Simon Short writes in, Dave and Alex, can you guys talk a little bit about your expectations for when Banner comes back, assuming he's healthy? How much can he really help this offensive line from a run blocking and pass blocking standpoint? And in light of that, would Chooks going to left tackle then be an improvement over Dan Moore based on what we've seen to this point? Unless Dan just really starts having some miserable games, I have a feeling Dan Moore is going to be a left tackle the rest of the season there. Now the question becomes, what happens when Banner is healthy, Alex?
Yeah, gotten asked that quite a bit. I mean, we don't know when that's going to happen and what that's going to look like and what the play of a core 4 and more is, at whenever Banner comes, whenever he comes back and is healthy. So it's just really hard to answer that question. I tend to agree that I think Moore is going to be the guy at left tackle. They're clearly high on him. He's held his own overall. And if you want to get a better run blocking unit, then I think Banner is a big upgrade over a core 4 in the run game. But we'll just have to see how things look whenever that time comes.
It's an indictment, I think, it's an indictment either way. If Moore has to come out of the left tackle position now at this point, then it's an indictment on him and the process and them drafting him, to me.
Yeah, again, I just don't even think about that stuff right now because it's all hypothetical. I mean, Moore could tank against the Bengals. You could have a great game, and that's going to change our thoughts. I mean, Banner is not available yet, and until he is, I don't even really entertain the idea of who's going to play where and what they're going to do.
All right, and then we'll see about Banner. I'm with you. I think it's way too early to look. I mean, Okorafor. Once again, I hate to use I'm not sending him to the Pro Bowl for his performance on Sunday against the Raiders, but he was the best of the worst, I think, overall run and pass blocking overall. And look, it wasn't collectively as a group, and that's what matters the most. It was not above the line.
Yeah, I mean, Okorafor did good things out in space, I thought, but at the first level, is he getting movement? Are they just stalemates and you're just kind of holding on? I think in some space stuff on some linebackers, DBs, he did well. There were a couple good blocks out there, but I mean, that's a low bar for an offensive lineman blocking a corner out on the edge.
Well, he was the low bar clearer, I thought, this week.
Yeah, no, I don't necessarily disagree. I just,
Now, as a whole, week to week, no, it hasn't. It hasn't been.
Right, and I think Banner's a better run blocker overall than Chooks. But again, I mean, obviously Banner could come back for week 4, but there's no guarantee of that. I mean, it could be week 7. It could be week 10. I have no idea. So I'm just going to wait and see.
All right, let's get this last one in from Justin Brisbane. He writes in, I know that it isn't sustainable and it's gimmicky, but how do you guys feel about using a little bit of Wildcat to manufacture some offense? I think Najee's skill set would let him excel in a package like this. Thanks for the excellent coverage. Look, I'm not opposed to certain maybe once or twice a game situationally, maybe doing something, especially maybe when McFarland gets healthy and on the field. But I mean, you can't let your quarterback be the quarterback. Then do you have a quarterback? I get it with guys like Lamar and guys that are certain offenses. All it just I don't think of. And we saw it, a couple of times with Le'Veon Bell, and obviously Jalen Samuels has run some Wildcat before.
I knew you were going to say that.
Do you want to, Alex, would you like to promote Jalen Samuels from the practice squad this week to run some Wildcat? How about that?
Yeah, I'm getting some big 2019 vibes over here with the Wildcat talk. I mean,
tight end Jalen Samuels?
Please don't do that to me. Yeah.
By the way, that's a joke. He's not a tight end. Everybody's been calling him a tight end since, and I have fun with certain people that I know listen to this show that continue to think that Jalen Samuels is a tight end. But go ahead.
Yeah, I get the point, but it just feels like a big desperation plea 2 weeks into the season to start running Wildcat. So, I mean, if things continue to be really bad, maybe, but that kind of feels like a break class in case of emergency idea. I
mean, you want to get down to the goal line and maybe. It would probably force a team to call a timeout is what it would do. Line Ben out, stretch him out, line Ben up as wide receiver, put Najee in the backfield as the Wildcat. You want to do it once or twice, but I mean, as far as doing it 3, 4, 5 times a game, I just can't see it.
Yeah, the goal here is to fix the fundamental issues with this run game. That it is some of the more perimeter type stuff about like Derek Watt usage and Wildcat and those other things. Until this O-line gets major improvement and starts picking it up, all this other stuff is kind of pointless to me.
All right. We don't want to talk about Geno Atkins again, do we?
I mean, we can. I don't see the role in terms of like an every down or base defense role for him. He just kind of been a 3-tech gap shooter, which the Steelers, I think, have enough of those guys when Carlos Davis is healthy.
All right, I think we have got through all of them here then. So within that, let's see, how long do we have today here, Alex? Another, hour, 45 minutes or so?
Yeah, somewhere around there, yep.
All right, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Make sure you get on the Twitter machine, Paul Daner Jr. You locate him and thank him for coming on the show. It means something to those guys to hear that they're heard, and it makes it easier to schedule them on whenever we need them to come on and talk about the opposition there. So follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. You can follow the great Alex Kozora on the Twitter machine at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, go to Steelers Depot, hit the ad-free button for $25 for one calendar year. You can have an ad-free version of the site. Go to PredictionStrike.com. Use terrible as a promo code. Get signed up there and support our sponsors of the show as well too. So until Friday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.